I'm Sam, this is Alex, this is Jason, and this is Brittany, and we're doing our topic on definitions. It's not what you want, but what you need. So, the types of definitions that are going to be covered are visual, stipulative, descriptive, and parenthetical, and we'll go over the definitions of each of those words as we go along. So, visual definitions are pictures or symbols that use things like help give aid or an explanation. So, for example, if you were to go to a foreign country and like an isolated village and you were to ask them what a hamburger is, they might have no idea. So instead of explaining it through like a lot of words, you can give them like a picture and then put a few words on there to better give your definition. So here's a cheeseburger, so you have your bun, your mayo, your onion, your lettuce, your patty, your cheese, and this one has another patty, and then you have like your condiments on the bottom. So this helps give a visual definition, which makes it easier to understand something. Something that's may not have clicked since you've been reading is that we've been using visual definitions our whole life. For example, like when you were a kid, your parents may have gave you flashcards with pictures on them, and they'd give the word, or when they were feeding you in a high chair, they'd say peas before feeding you. So when you see them later in life by yourself, you know what they are just by looking at them, and it helps give a better definition of items or processes. So they can be simple or easy to understand. Like the older you get, like this is a coffee maker, and this is a definition of what a coffee maker looks like and what's on a coffee maker. So you have like your on and off switch, your signal lamp, and your reservoir, and then your water level, which tells you how much water in there, which you know is how many cups of coffee you're going to make. But then it can also get a little bit more complicated. So here's a process flow diagram without anything on it. And if I were to tell you the production in words, speaking it, it'd be pretty hard for you to draw it out and remember it later on and explain it to someone else. So this makes it a little bit easier to understand what the definition of the process is going to be. So a lot of these pictures don't make sense to anyone yet until they're given a word. I might know them, or a chemical engineer would know them. So can anyone take a guess at what this is? I mean, it's kind of hard to tell, but that's a mill, a hopper, a mash tun, and you get three products out. There's a fermenting vessel right here. So, distillations, well, there's a distillation column, but that's not the final product. But beer. Yeah, it's beer. So, because you have your hopper, which makes your hops, and then you get out your kegs, your bottles, and then the bulk. So it gives a better definition, but if I were to give you word for word everything that's happening, and then have you draw it out for someone else later, it'd be really hard to remember. But if I were to give you the picture first, you'd at least get 75% of it written out. And so why visual definitions are so important? They can give you a better definition about a word or a process, and they also can clarify something that might be hard to visualize, like that process, or something that you've never seen before. So, and then Brittany's gonna talk about her stipulative definitions.
Ooh, stipulative definition, guys. You ready? Okay. So what I did in my research over this, I'm going to look at the Webster Dictionary, and what it was a declaration of a meaning that is intended to be attached by the speaker to a word, expression, or a symbol, and that usually doesn't already have an established use in the sense intended. I don't know about y'all, but when I read that, I was like, what? Like, what does that mean? So, I went a little bit more digging on it, and a better way to understand it is it freely assigns meaning to a new term, creating a uses that has never been used before. And I'll have a couple examples which will help explain it. So when you think of the word dog, what do y'all think?
Animal.
You think of puppies! That's what I think. And then there's a lot more to the word dog than y'all think. So, with the Webster Dictionary of it, there's obviously the obvious one. It's a mammal related to the gray wolf and stuff. And then there's the not nice one where mean things are said. And then a couple other ones that surprised me that I didn't even know were it's a very simple mechanical device for holding, fastening that contain a spike, bar, or hook. I have no idea what that is. Copied that exactly from the website, but apparently that's the definition of a dog. And there were a couple more that were just kind of repeated. And then a good use of stipulative definition would be Urban Dictionary, and where people like changed the meaning of the word dog to like help for their benefit. So like obvious ones were like man's best friend. A couple other ones which I thought were interesting was like not a cat. Gotta love Black Adder. A couple of them are mean, so please don't use these against people because that's really rude. One was one ugly person, usually in the case of a dog, you should stay away from it. A person that ditches their friends for other things. Like an example would be like, screw Stacy and Ryan, I'm gonna ditch them and go to the arcade instead. And then one definition was like, dog means a friend or person that you're gonna hang out with, like not to be confused with the animal dog, which would be like, what's up, dog? Like, I don't know if you remember as a kid in elementary school, like, you'd be like, what's up, dog? You know, when you see your homies. And then like a couple examples, like you can make made-up words for it, and a couple of them that I found were like eggshell generation, which is like kind of sad, but it's like kind of our generation because we're overly sensitive to everything. And then God's pajamas, which I thought was just funny, which is just nude, naked, like it's just another way to say like you're in the nude. And then fantabulous is a created word, which is fantastic and fabulous put together. I mean, you're better than fabulous and you're better than fantastic, so put it together. And then the importance of it, it just introduces new meaning to either an already existing word or for a made-up word. So obviously Urban Dictionary has a lot of stipulated definitions, so. And then Jason's gonna describe descriptive definitions for you.
Okay, so descriptive definitions it explains how a symbol has been used or is used, and it usually relates to a period of time, but it can also be changed by cultures and places. So what do you think of when you see a swastika?
Nazis.
That's what everyone associates it with, mainly. So the swastika originally, it was a good meaning. It's been used for over 5,000 years, and the original word swastika means the good fortune or goodwill, and now it's been changed by the Nazis, so it all depends on what time period you're using. Like if you're in the old times, it'd be a good fortune, the definition would be, but now it's often a symbol of death and hate, so that's one thing. Then a couple more examples. What are some things that symbols that B could mean, like
Volume.
volume? Any others?
Voltage.
Voltage,
Velocity.
velocity. So just by itself you can't tell what it means, but it has to be in some sort of context and you have to define it. So like in physics it'd be velocity or something like that, so you have to tell it what it means. Next one is a triangle. Any uses for that you know of? Delta. Any others? Change. And then another one I came up with, if you rotate it a little bit, it becomes a play symbol for like stuff. So you have to define what it is, like just a triangle, or it could mean delta. You have to say what it means. And then theta, it's the same thing. It's like angles or stuff, but it also, in ancient times, it used to mean death. So you have to define what you're doing and when it's being used. It also plays into what Brittany is saying, like words can mean different things. Like in times, like gay used to mean happy or merry, and now it means homosexuality and stuff like that. Another one is awful. It used to mean the same thing as awesome, but now over time it changed to mean it's like something bad or not very good. So overall, it just gives a specific meaning to a symbol that can mean many different things, and just you have to tell based on time and stuff like that. Now Alex is going to talk about parenthetical definitions.
Okay, so parenthetical definitions are basically a short definition or explanation of a term or phrase. It's usually denoted by parentheses. You can see in the sentence here. Once he realized they were catching on, he annihilated the evidence, and then they define the word annihilated, reduced to non-existence in the middle of the sentence. So it's very easy for the reader to understand the sentence and just know without having to go reference something else. Parenthetical definitions have quite a few different types, and I'm going to talk about 3 of them later on. But before I get to that, you want to make sure you're considering your audience when you're using this, because you don't want to be defining words for higher educated people or lower educated people. I mean, you gotta know who you're writing to. So the first type of parenthetical definitions you can use is just a dictionary definition, which is what my example was on the last slide. Just straight out of the dictionary in parentheses, maybe a little more brief. You don't want to make it too long. You can also use a synonym. That makes it a lot shorter, easier to read, and it's easier for some people to understand. So like in this example, as the horse came around the corner, it started to trot, and then it just uses a jog. I mean, it just makes it a little bit easier for some people to understand. And then a third type you can use is an acronym. You can use it to repeat a long term, like South Dakota School of Mines and Technology. That's kind of a mouthful to say over and over again. So you can just shorten it to SDSMT, and you would just use it in parentheses just after that, and throughout the rest of your paper or document you can reference it as SDSMT instead of South Dakota School of Mines and Technology. And then you want to make sure that you don't explain too much or too easy terms, because some people could get insulted if you're trying to explain, basic stuff that they should already know. So when would you use them? Basically, dictionary definitions are going to be your most basic use. They're very straightforward. You can just use them anywhere, and people will know what you're talking about. But if you want to be a little bit more concise and maybe leave it shorter, you can use synonyms, which would make it a lot easier for you and the reader. And then, as I said earlier, for acronyms, they're just useful for shortening terms and repeating them in your document. But you want to be careful with these. You don't want to overkill it. If you're like defining something every sentence, that's probably not a good idea, because people are just going to be all over the place and it's just going to look messy. So overall, during this presentation, we have talked to you and taught you about visual, stipulative, descriptive, and parenthetical definitions. And these are all important because they help your audience understand better what you're talking about, and they also help them comprehend easier everything without having to go reference other things, go research it before they read it, things like that. Are there any questions?